Today we are going to learn about circles in the coordinate plane, so circles on a graph. And your essential question is, what is the equation for the standard form of a circle, and what do each of the variables mean? So the standard form for the equation of a circle, let's take a look at that. So let's say that this is our circle on our coordinate plane, and HK, this coordinate, whatever these numbers are, is the center of our circle, okay? And X and Y just represent any points. So your X coordinate and your Y coordinate can be any point on the circle. So you could technically take this line here and rotate it anywhere around the circle, and any point on that outside of the circle would be XY. And then the distance from the center to the outside of the circle, we know, is the radius. So when we write our standard form for the equation of a circle, we're going to take HK as the center, and XY is any point, and R is the radius. Now, an equation with a center HK and radius R is this formula here. So this formula is the standard form of the equation for a circle. Now you might recognize this formula a little bit. It looks very similar to the distance formula or Pythagorean theorem. Those are all very closely related, because if I were to take my pen and turn this into a right triangle, okay, I could figure out the radius of the circle here by using Pythagorean theorem. Alrighty. So we're going to practice using this equation. We're going to write the standard equation of a circle with a center 5, -2, and a radius of 7. So remember, we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we're just going to take those numbers and plug them in. So x and y just kind of stay as they are. So we have x minus and then h, which if you look at your x coordinate and your y coordinate, that would be your center. That's like your, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have written xy. xy is the same as hk. So we have hk, because this is the center. So the center is whatever h and k are here. So we have x minus 5 squared plus y minus -2 squared equals, and then we need to do r squared, so the radius would be 7 squared. Now we could simplify this a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So x minus 5 squared, we can just leave that as it is. But when I have minus and negative, that's the same as addition. So I'm going to change this to y plus 2 squared. And then 7 squared would be equal to 49. So, erase that. We have x minus 5 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 49. That would be our equation of our circle. If the center is 5, -2, so you put the center here, and the radius is 7. Alright, let's try some more with that. So what happens if they give us a point in the center, but they don't give us the radius? Okay, so it says write a standard equation of the circle with center 1, -3 that passes through the point 2, 2. So the center is given by HK. So whatever the center is, that is your H and your K. And then if I don't have R, but I have a point, the point is represented by X and Y. So these are all the things that I have. So I can use these and just plug them into my formula for the standard equation of a circle, and then I can use that to help me figure out what r is. So I'm going to find the radius first, and then I can write my equation. So I would do x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. That's my standard equation of a circle, and you need to have this memorized. So if I know what x is 2. So I have 2 minus, and then h, which is 1 squared, plus, and then y is 2 minus negative 3 squared equals r squared. Okay, so what's 2 minus 1? That would be 1 squared, which equals 1, plus, then I have 2 minus negative 3, so that's the same as 2 plus 3, which would be 5. So 5 squared would be 25 equals r squared. So if I add these together, 1 plus 25 would be 26 is what r squared equals. Now I could go figure out what r is, and then like by taking the square root, but if I do that, I'm just going to square it again in my equation. So really, once I have r squared, that's all I need for my equation. So now that I know what my radius is, I can write my equation. So remember, I'm doing x minus h squared, so I have x minus, and then h was 1 squared, plus y minus k, which was negative 3. So if I do minus a negative 3, that's the same thing as plus 3, equals, and then I'm supposed to have r squared. Well, I already know what r squared is. R squared is 26. So like I said, you could take the square root of this, but then you're just going to square it again, and so you're going to get 26 anyway. So I would just leave it as r squared. So that would be the answer. That would be the equation of our circle. All right, now we're going to practice graphing circles given the equation. So it says, find the center and the radius of the circle with the equation, and they give us the equation, and then graph the circle. So here's the equation of my circle. So remember, the equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, now remember, this is minus k and minus h, so the numbers for h and k are opposite of what you think because it's minus h. So if it's minus, then h would actually equal 7. And if this were minus, this would be the same thing as minus negative 2. So k would actually be a negative 2. Okay, and then if I want to find r, if r squared equals 64, then how would I get just r? Well, I would have to take the square root, so r would equal 8. So now I have my center, which is hk, which is 7, negative 2, and my radius is 8. So if I graph that, my center is 7, negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, negative 2. And then I would have to go 8 spaces in each direction. Now mine is going to go off of this graph because I didn't make it big enough. But if I grab my shapes here, I'm going to grab my circle. I'm going to put this as the center. I want to make sure that my circle is 8 spaces out, the radius. So I'm going to count until it gets 8 spaces. So if this is over 7, then one more would be 8. So that would be right about there. So I can count, and you guys don't have a circle tool, obviously. So what you'll have to do is count your radius. So if my radius is 7, negative 2, or my center is 7, negative 2, and I go up 8 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would make that point. And then I go 8 spaces this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I go 8 spaces down. And then I would go 8 spaces to the right. And then you can go ahead and draw your circle around those 4 points. And obviously it won't be perfect, but if you had a compass, you could open the compass to the radius of your circle and then draw it on your graph. So if you'd like to use a compass, you can do that, but if not, just draw your circle to the best of your ability, as long as you have those 4 points. All right, thank you very much. Make sure you go back and answer the essential question and write your summary.